Hello, everyone. My name is Parthiv. Today, we are going to look at how to take backup of item level objects through administrative backup in Project Server 2013. Now, before we go ahead and talk about Project Server 2013, let me go ahead and talk about Project Server 2010. For people who have used Project Server 2010 and now have moved to Project 2013, you will notice some big difference in regards to taking administrative backup. So, for example, I have a test environment right now over here where we go ahead and it's a 2010 server environment. Over here, if I wanted to take a backup of my projects or resources or any other custom fields or global templates or categories and group settings, those things, I could easily do it from my PWA instance itself. All I had to do is go to my PWA, go to server settings, and in server settings under the database administration section, I had options over here for a daily backup schedule, for creating a schedule for backup, for taking my administrative backup, or restoring items from the backup that I've taken. But what you will notice now is in 2013, so this is my 2013 environment that I have. It's a test 2013 environment that I've been working on. If you notice on this server in here, I do not see. Oh, I think I just clicked on something. Let me go back to my server settings over here. So in 2010, I could go to my PWA server settings and get the backup options and administrative backup options and things like that. But in 2013, if you notice, I do not have that option. So I have the database administration section right here, just in 2010. But if you notice the options that I have available underneath it, I do not have those options for administrative backup or restore or scheduling my backup. Well, where did this go then? How do I do it in 2013? Well, for some reason, and I don't agree with it, the way Microsoft has decided to do it, but what they've done is rather than having these options available to an application administrator like me or whoever is there in your environment who can do it in PWA, they've actually moved this to the central admin, the SharePoint central admin. Now, one way, yes, it's good because you don't want a lot of people to get access to, um, you know, taking backups and restoring their projects. But for some places that I work, even if you are an application administrator, like a project server administrator, does not necessarily mean that you have access to the SharePoint, which is actually good because I just know enough of SharePoint to actually break it rather than fix a few things over there. But nevertheless, it's been moved to the central admin, so you don't have that option in PWA anymore. So let me go to my central admin. So this is one of my servers that I've been working with, and I'm actually already logged into the server where I have access to my central admin. So in order to go ahead and have options to um, back up or restore your project server, uh, you know, projects or enterprise resources or custom fields, I have to go to central admin. So before we start and see as to how we can go ahead and make these changes, I would like to go ahead and talk a little bit about what this actually does. So it's not your database backup. This is not a database backup. What it essentially does is you have a project. It basically creates copy of this project into a different table, the archive tables. Well, in 2010, you had a whole archive database. In 2013, they've combined all those databases into one, but they're different tables. There's a publish table, there's a draft table. I'm not going to get into details for that, but essentially what it does is it creates a copy of your project and stores it off into a different place. So in case if something goes wrong with your project, you have a backup. You can go to that backup, restore it in, you don't have to restore the whole database. You can just take that file back and restore just that file and work with it. So the things that it can do is projects. It can take your resource pools and calendars. It can back up your custom fields, your global templates, your view definitions, your categories and group settings. Those are the items that it can back up and you can restore it. And we'll go through on how to do it and things like that. The good thing is it doesn't take a copy of it and stores it every time that you publish or save the project. It only does an incremental save. So basically what that means is today you have a project, you open the project, you make some changes to a project and then save it. It'll go ahead and stay a backup of it, creates a new version of a backup of it. If you do not make any change, you just open it and go ahead and publish it or save it. It does not make a backup of it because there were no changes made to your projects. So to go back and look at the options we have to how to do this. So I'm logged into my central admin. I'm not going to go into more details on central admin, but essentially when you go into your central admin, on the home page, you can click on Application Management. Under Application Management, under the Service Applications section, there is a Manage Service Applications. Go ahead and click on that. Now these are all your applications that are running on your SharePoint central admin or your SharePoint farm. All I'm concerned about is my project server backup. So I'll go ahead and click on my project server. Now you could have multiple instances. For example, as you see, I have 2 instances on this, running on the same farm. Well, if I want to go, I just want to go ahead and configure my current PWA instance. So for example, this is the instance that I'm working with, and I want to go ahead and create a backup and options for this particular instance. In order to do that, I would select that instance, click on this drop down option that comes up with it, and then click on Manage. Now if you notice, there are a lot of options that were there in 2010 that were part of my PWA instance. PWA server settings are now part of my central admin. So for example, if you notice over here, my backups are all part of my central admin. They're not available to me in my PWA server settings. Even the OLAP database management is part of my central admin now and not part of my server settings anymore. So here are my options for my backup and restore. So let's first look at the administrative backup options, and then we'll look at the restore and the daily schedule backup. But let's look at the administrative backup for a minute. Click on administrative backup, and it provides me an option of, okay, what do you want to backup? Now this is a manual backup, so you are making a backup of everything that you want manually. You're manually going ahead and creating this job so that project server can go capture all this information and store it in the backup database. So I can select my projects, my resources and pool, my calendars, custom fields, enterprise global, view definitions, category and group settings. I can select everything and then hit backup. Now it does take a while depending on how many projects and everything that you have, so I'm not going to go ahead and click backup. It's just a simple process. You click backup, it goes to the queue, you wait for the queue for the job to finish, and just basically refreshes the page and brings you back to the PWA setting page essentially. So I've already run the backup. So let's see, how do you restore your project? So when would you want to restore a project? Well, there are a couple of instances when you would want to go ahead and restore your project. So for example, one instance, and this is something that we've seen a lot, is I have a project, I'm a project manager, I go ahead and create this project, I go ahead and make all these changes, I add, there's a scope change on my project, and I've gone ahead and added, hundreds of lines of task in my project because of the scope change that happened in my project. Well, a week later, this scope change was approved. Everything, I went through the whole process of getting it approved, everything going through. I assigned my resources. Everything is all approved, and I go ahead and do it. Well, a week later, the client comes back and says, you know what? Yeah, we decided on not to do that scope change that we wanted because we don't have the budget for it anymore. We thought that we would have the budget and it would have got approved, but we don't have the budget, so we got to go ahead and undo those changes that were requested and just stick with the original scope. Well, I just went ahead and made all these changes to my project. I went ahead and saved it and published it. I'm not going to go through the whole thing of removing all these tasks one by one from my project schedule or creating another project schedule. That's just way too much work. I can simply just go ahead and restore it from a previous backup that I did. Well, that's one instance. Well, another common instance that we've seen is sometimes project schedules just get corrupted. You probably deleted a few tasks that had actuals on it. You have other things going on in your project, and for some reason now when you open your project, it refuses to save, it refuses for you to do anything, can't open it, things like that. In that case, you just want to restore it to a previous working version so that you can go ahead and make the necessary changes that you've done and redo the whole project. So in order to restore a project, it's a simple process. You just basically go to the administrative restore section. Now, as you can see, I ran one backup just before I started this video, and as you see, all my projects are backed up currently. Now, there is an option for setting up how many versions you can create a backup. So for now, I only have one backup created. So over here, I have options on if I want to restore my projects, if I want to restore my enterprise resource pool, the last backup enterprise resource pool, my last backed up custom fields, or view definitions, or categories and group settings. Whatever the case is, I can go ahead and do it from here. Let's say I want to go ahead and restore one of my projects. So let's say this automated servicing training is the one that I want to restore. As you can see, I have a version description of when this project was backed up. If I had multiple backups, it would have different versions showing up over here. In the date on which I actually took the backup, this backup was taken. To restore, I simply select the version that I want to restore, scroll down all the way, and there is a restore button. As soon as I hit the restore button, my previous project that I had will be overwritten with this new one, and I can start working on that option. Well, I normally recommend, rather than doing this backup in every day, rather than going ahead and doing this every time, you can actually schedule your backup. So if you click on the daily schedule backup, I can go ahead and create a daily backup. I can say how many versions of backup do I want. Normally we recommend anything between 5 and 10 depending on your retention policy. Those are the recommended versions that we would say, the number of versions that you would want to go ahead and take a backup of, but it's up to you. We normally recommend between 5 and 10. That's more than enough for most of the people. But here's where I can select that option and then simply just say schedule my project backup, my enterprise resource pool backup, create this backup, and just save it. So every time now there's a change that is made to my project, it automatically goes ahead and takes a backup of it and stores it into the archive tables as we discussed earlier. So these are the options that we have. The main point of this video was to show you that these settings are now moved into the central admin rather than being part of PWA settings as it was in the previous versions of Project Server. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please let us know if you have any feedbacks or any questions. Please feel free to contact us anytime, and we would be more than happy to help you out with it. Again, thank you for watching this video, and hope you guys have a good one.